Hello to everyone. I hope that you are all safe and good in your homes. And obviously, we're in a whole situation here with COVID-19. So I really want to get into with all of you if you've been sent to work from home, whether it's for the first time, whether it's you have always been working from home, but maybe your team hasn't been, or your clients haven't been, there's been a substantial change that just happened. Or even if you used to work from home, but it wasn't with your spouse and your kids and everyone else, or you weren't actively worried about your family at the same time, right? All of this is for a lot of folks, working from home right now is a little bit more WTF. So we want to figure out how can we set up ourselves and our teams and our whole lives so that we can remotely work, manage, and lead. So with all that, I just want to start into if we haven't met before and you don't know that much about me, my background is Amazon, Google, Zazzle. I've done engineering, product management. I've created and run remote cross-functional teams. I've literally built and managed a product team from across the country. So I've done this thing for a number of years, but again, not everyone here has. So I want to share with you those insights. And today, what I primarily do is I work with individuals and teams to help them catapult to that next level and really get themselves situated in terms of career and overall life. So with all of that, let's jump in further and into what we are going to get by the end of this session. So some of the things we really want to be able to do here, want to be able to better manage the craziness of all this global pandemic of COVID-15 or 19, of working from home in general. We want to also understand how we can be leaders in this, how we can help be a source of calm and support for our teams and our families, as opposed to like working ourselves up and working others up too. And look, I get it. We've all had our moments here. This is not a seamless transition or a seamless time in any way. But we also want to understand, what are these hazards of remote work? Some of them we've talked about here. There are others too. And how do we overcome those hazards? How do we get beyond all of these challenges? And fundamentally, how do we set up an effective system that's going to help you get things done while maintaining your sanity? It turns out just being productive but kind of going crazy at the same time, not the most helpful. So the first hazard here, and hopefully, at this point, maybe it's subsided a bit, but letting that panic set in. There's clearly a lot of question in this uncertain time. There's a lot of question about what's next. I've seen so many posts and memes and things about even just the display of like breaking news, and everyone's like, oh my God, what could be happening now? So there's a lot of that going on. And I do want to say, in general, and this is both for you all as individuals, as business owners, as product owners, for all of you, whatever your position is, because we have this time of uncertainty ahead of us, that also means opportunity. And we'll get into that. But for now, just not getting fully panicked, getting scared about what's next, and also the social isolation feelings. So obviously we're doing social distancing, which is all about physical distancing, but for a lot of folks, if you've been cooped up in your house for 2 days, a week, 2 weeks, more, it can be really trying. I mean, they call it cabin fever for a reason. And for some folks, maybe if you're super introverted, this might be your dream. You're like, yes, I get to work, in my house and expand out and have my like private space, quiet time. If you're an extrovert, no, that's probably not how you're feeling. But either way, there can be these social isolation feelings. You might also get into these states where you feel like you let negativity take over, whether it's your living situation, like maybe you have, a lot of people in the house, maybe you have no one in the house, maybe you feel really alone, maybe you feel like, oh my gosh, just hearing you chew right now is really irritating me, or just fears about the future, or literal connectivity issues. I mean, it's funny because we actually scheduled this talk initially for last Thursday, and we ran into a literal connectivity issue between Zoom and Facebook that didn't allow us to go live. So again, that's happening across the board as servers are getting overloaded, as everyone has converted to this online state that we're in. So the first tip here, and you can see them listed behind me as well, the first tip is managing you, managing yourself, managing both your space. So for that, we want to look at, can you create as much as possible, especially if you've got other people in the house? Maybe you've got a spouse, kids, multiple kids, dogs, cats, pets, like relatives, whatever. If you can, when you need to, create a separate bit of space, like whether it's sound isolated or visually isolated, where and when possible, for you to do some of the sort of productive things that you want to do. I mean, I do want to say, like, the fact that you're on this call and that we're able to be discussing this, you're in hopefully a set that has that benefit of being able to work from home. As we know, we're in this time where there's a bunch of people who got sent to their homes and don't have that ability. So we want to keep your, economic productivity going for yourself and your family. But again, there are going to be certain times where you need to take a call. And so you might want to do that at the other end of your place. Now, again, I'm in the New York City area. I understand that, when I say like the other end of the house, you're like the other end of the room, the bathroom, like where am I supposed to go? So I totally get that a lot of folks, there's a crampedness to it. So again, it might be like you go in the bedroom and hopefully there's a little bit of a separate corner, or somebody is wearing sound, like Bose headphones, sound isolating headphones, or even for some of you, like I got this from another mom a while back, these just sound isolation things where all it does is literally buffer the sound. So if you need it either for a call, or maybe you need some quiet time, maybe you're coding, designing, doing things that are more sitting down individually, contributing tasks and getting things done, going through emails, whatever it is, those are some options to help sound and visually isolate yourself. Sometimes it's even, I remember a bit ago when I was living in a studio apartment, and in that apartment you could not, like, it was hard to not see the other person even. I mean, there was just no space whatsoever. So it might be even just turning yourself so that you're looking at a window, a wall, something, to give yourself a little bit of that room as much as possible. Now, for your family, maybe you have family, maybe you have roommates, you have other people in your space. While you want to have that separate space for times that you need it, where you're maybe taking calls or, doing heads down work, take advantage of the fact that you've got other people there, and maybe you decide, okay, noon, we're going to have a meal time, 6, 7, 8, whatever it is, we're going to have a meal time. We're going to come together and, actually be present with each other. So all of those things are, options. Again, we don't need to fully separate from the people in our lives. We can find that hybrid approach. Now, I will say, and I do want to explicitly say, for those of you with kids, I totally get that. I mean, we have a child as well. She's 7 months. That's a whole other situation as far as these things go. So again, for that, maybe it's someone takes the baby, the toddler, the little one, whatever it is, into another room while the other one is doing some work, and you might be swapping off. Or, if you have someone who can dedicate some of that time, great. If they're a little older, maybe doing more online classes, things like that. But again, as much as you can, give yourself some opportunity to do dedicated focus time, whether it's on a call or independent, and some of that together time with people you're with. And then your individual self, right? There's just beyond work and beyond getting things done. There's just you as a person and feeding you, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, all these things. So that's where you can look at meditation, or connecting with others overall. For a lot of folks, there's a lot more connection happening now. You're writing people who you went to high school with, who you haven't seen for years, who maybe you worked with a few jobs ago and you're thinking of them. This is definitely that time to stoke up those connections I generally say, and especially with my clients, I encourage them, like if you think of someone, reach out to them, especially at a time like now. If you get a message or an email or something saying, hey, I was thinking of you, how are you and your family doing? That is huge. Nobody looks at that and says, oh, why are you bugging me? Like that's a huge thing, especially in a time like now. So it's a great time to like reconnect. I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs as well and working with a lot of entrepreneurs, and that's where a lot of the discussions we're having, even if people aren't, like a lot of business might be on hold, but this is a great time to invest in relationships, both personal and professional. So again, connecting with others, like it's going to be more, via phone or video chat, things like that. But that's, again, it's that opportunity. Even open windows if like you need to get some fresh air in. You can have some of those safe walks, like keep your 6 foot physical distancing, even deep breathing techniques. And I do want to address routine. So you obviously had some kind of routine before we got into this position. And now there's the question of what kind of routine do you want to establish now? I do say as much as possible, it would be great for you just in terms of adjusting both to this time and then back to normal life, so to speak. It would be great for you to maintain as much routine as you had before. So, I mean, some of these things, some of it is just bio needs, right? Keep eating, drinking water, use that toilet paper, that everyone's now bought. You need to kind of work through all that, but also like shower, get dressed. I mean, I know when I first started working from home years ago, it can be very tempting to like barely change, right? Your pajamas are like what you're getting on a call because you're like, oh, it's not video, it's fine. Definitely recommend as much as possible, like even dress up a little bit, really just help yourself get into a better state as much as possible using that fulfillment of bio needs and like looking at how you're just caring for yourself overall. And then the other question here that might seem almost too far right now, but just to push you a bit, I really want you to all start asking yourself this question: how can I make the most of this? What is it about this time that is actually going to help you? Maybe you always wanted to do remote work, but you weren't sure if you could, and this is that test. For some of you, maybe your position is totally shifting. It's not set up for remote work. So this is the opportunity for you to start your own thing, try a side hustle, find a new position, because the way things are going, it's making you realize as you're reflecting, this isn't what you want to do. But how can I make the most of this? I mean, the thing is, also the fact that this thing has happened, that it's impacted the economy, products, consumers, individuals, companies, all of this, there's going to be a lot of shift. So again, where can you position yourself for the biggest ultimate impact? Now, some of the specifics here, just to give you some specific tangible tools to take away to manage yourself. Meditation, some great apps here. Headspace and Calm are probably the top two. Simply Being an Insight Timer are some of my personal favorites as well. Journaling, it's a great way to kind of work out things. So even if you end up in a state where you feel like overwhelmed or you feel really panicked or anxious, any of these, feelings that you need to work out, you can even start with, I don't even know why I'm journaling, this is really annoying, and then get into what it is you're trying to work out. How am I supposed to keep up with all these emails when I'm alone? Well, what's going on? What's happening, etc. Or the other thing, let's see if I have it usually near me, but my gratitude journal is another great thing. So journaling, like in general, is more about kind of writing things out, but having a gratitude journal. So I keep a small gratitude journal where I aim to daily, and I say aim because if I don't do it for a day or two, I'm not going to beat myself up. But I aim to do usually, I would say 3 to 10. Like the research is that if you do even just list 3 things that you're grateful for on a daily basis for as little as 30 days, you end up seeing the benefits of doing that gratitude work for up to 6 months from just that 30 days. If you stopped after 30 days, you would still get those benefits for a minimum of 6 months. That's what the research has shown. So I definitely strongly recommend, especially in a time of such stress and so many negative feelings that can creep up, gratitude journaling literally rewires your brain to see the positive. So I definitely recommend that. And especially on any of these topics, even peak state, like getting into a peak state, meaning when you are going to go present, or if you were to go into an interview, you want to be at your best. You want to go in, you want to be able to, impress, you want to be able to just nail it. And so peak state is all about being in that amazing state physically, emotionally, psychologically. A lot of times people can talk about it when they're working individually as flow, or can feel like flow, whether you're in an interview, a presentation, individually working. So if you want some resources on gratitude or peak state, feel free to reach out to me. I'll share more details of that at the end too. But again, great practices. Now on the body side, like I mentioned, food, water, showers, right? Like all of these basic needs. And again, on that side, like more healthy, less chips. I've totally done some binge eating of chips, definitely had the can't have just one, kind of had that moment, and then moved on. Exercise, these are just a couple of apps, Eat Fit, Daily Yoga, couple of options. There's so many out there, even just on YouTube. If you search for the thing that you want, or I have a good friend who's doing online Zumba classes. So a lot of the folks in my communities are going to her and joining her Zoom call. So many different options. Then on the posture side, this is something to really be mindful of. So ideally, if you were to plan to work from home, say you were planning on a transition, one of the things I always recommend is to set up your whole system in your whole area. Like first off, having an area, which I know some of you are like, seriously, like I don't have that. But ideally, you would set it up to be ergonomic, meaning that everything was set up in a way where the way you're holding your body, whether it's like posture or that you're standing, that you're moving a fair amount, like all of these things, even the way you deal with your mouse and your keyboard, that it's all done in an ergonomic way, meaning that if you stay in that position for a long time and use it for a long time, you aren't going to be prone to any kind of repetitive stress injury or things like that, as opposed to being in bed all day. I mean, again, we all know intuitively if we're hunched over and we're, on a little screen like this, it's not going to be the best setup for long term to stay in that position for a while. So for some of you, if you don't have a good setup for that yet, even just your kitchen chairs tend to like get you a little more sitting up straight, as opposed to like the couch or the bed or things like that. And also stand up once an hour, stand up regularly. You could even put a timer on your phone to remind you to get up on a regular basis. And then finally, telehealth. I mentioned it here, and it really can help you on both sides, mind and body, whether it's maybe you want some therapy or some counseling support, or body, like you just, especially with this COVID stuff, you have some kind of symptom, you want to call in and get advice and get guidance on how to deal with that. Or something else comes up, because life happens. And so use all of these things to support you and manage you. Now, hazard 2, not being connected. So we mentioned this a smidge, right? You could literally have connectivity issues. I want to tell you this picture, this screen is literally what my computer looked like in week 1. At one point I opened it up and I was like, ooh, this is bad. I don't know what situation that got into, but it was very bad. So obviously that's like a scary screen to get on your computer. And you might literally be struggling a bit with connectivity. So it might be a case where you want to do hardwire connections, where you might need to replace your wireless, or maybe some of you are like upgrading your system, even your internet carriers and things like that. But not being connected could also be a lack of clarity on, who's doing what are you supposed to be doing? What are the expectations that or had on you, like from your boss, right? What does your manager expect you to do? Or if you're managing others, think about this too. Are you being clear with your direct reports? Are you being clear on what they need to do? One of the things like that, being in person, especially if you work in a company or on a team where you're primarily in person or often in person, we don't have those passing in the hallway, like something seemed a little weird on Slack, and you just say, hey, wait, what did you mean by this? Oh, got it. Okay, move on. Or, getting water, getting food, whatever. So we want to make sure that you've got enough clarity so that when you sit down in the morning, you're not just like, I don't know what I was supposed to do. And again, on this theme, there's a question even of what tools are you using for yourself and for your teams, how you connect with other people in the world, how do you use them, and what if others aren't quite there yet or aren't on board yet? Maybe they haven't been convinced, or more likely, some of them haven't even used, like, I know a lot of people are on Zoom right now. We're using Zoom and Facebook. Maybe they haven't really used Zoom, or they haven't used the bridge, like we ran into this issue, right, between Zoom and Facebook. There could be ways that you're using the tools now that have shifted. And so that's likely to just introduce more challenges as you go through this time. So again, that next tip, and you can see it here too, establish and maintain that connection. And that's both personally and professionally. So another example, my 88-year-old grandfather down in Florida, he is cooped up. Like, that man is going strong. He's generally out of the house like 3 to 5 times a day, going here, there, everywhere. My mom even put an app on his phone so we could track him. He has no idea that that's even a thing, but he's all over the place. And so that's something that, we want to be connected to. And also it can be a bit of a distraction too. So you want to maintain those connections and really feel good about where things are with your family and with your professional contacts. Now, I also want to say video whenever possible, especially now that we're not having as much in-person time. Yes, you can use voice. You can always use chat as well. We do traditionally, whether it be email or some kind of messenger client, we do often use that. But I will say now, because we're missing so many cues from other people, we're missing all that information. It's literally been found that 7% of our communication is the literal words coming out of our mouth, meaning 93% is everything else: intonation, body language, facial expressions. All of these other things are really where the majority of communication is happening. And so with us physically separated from each other, we want to mimic that real person experience as much as possible. And again, that's with work, but also, when I'm talking to my 88-year-old grandfather, I might be saying to him, hit the button so that he could see us and the baby and all of this, so we have that video experience. Then create a set of expectations and new norms as well, both within your family and within your teams. So again, you may or may not have had a daily stand-up before. Even if you had one before, you might need to change some of that format. And I know a lot of people, I know my husband in his work, they weren't having a daily stand-up before, and now they're introducing that as a new norm and an expectation. Because again, without that physical connection, it can be more challenging to just, you can't just yell across the room and say, hey, Jason, what are you doing? You have to really figure out alternative ways of establishing connection. And then you want to set up and test these tools together. And I want to really encourage you to be patient with yourself and others. I will tell you, I am, an impatient product person at heart, right? I always look at things and I'm like, okay, cool. Why isn't this already done? Like, let's go. And it's funny, I've had so many experiences where I'm on this device, I'm explaining it to someone else, especially mom, right? Like all of us with our parents, we're often tech support, and I'll just be like, just click the button or just do this thing. And come to find out later, what we're seeing is literally two different things. Maybe she's on Safari, I'm on Chrome, or vice versa. Whatever it is, there's something about a version, something about a thing that makes what I'm looking at here different from what you're seeing. So that's why I really want to encourage you all, be patient. This will take a bit of time. Now, again, toolkit. We want to look at, when we're thinking about connection, what are some of the tools that we can and should be using? Zoom, obviously, that's what we're using right this minute to broadcast to you. Many people are using it for that video connection. Slack is another great tool that a lot of teams are using, and more than teams. I mean, I will tell you, I coach with a lot of professional women, and there's so many articles and pointers to here, 6 top Slack groups for women networking from their desks or in their homes. And now those have become even more popular. So again, ways of connecting personally, professionally, all over the place. WebEx, I know they were having some in and out outages, and there are so many others here too. GoToMeeting, like so many different things to connect. Email and phone, most of us are familiar with. These are go-to staples. I will say, yes, of course, we will continue to use them. However, our reliance on them might need to be shifted a bit and really shift into some of these other ways of connecting. If you're on Microsoft Suite with your company and team, you might use Skype or Teams. If you're on Google Suite, maybe Hangouts and Drive. And you can mix and match, obviously, all of this stuff, again, depending on with where you're working. Obviously, they might have some restrictions or they might have some preferred tools, but this is just to give you a broad sense of different options that exist. And then these last two, again, these are all like great options, but these two might be more relevant for some of you than others. Miro and Mural. So Miro obviously was sponsoring this today, but that's not why I'm bringing them up. They're also just a top tool for doing whiteboarding type collaboration. So if there's something that you and your team want to work out and you want this like visual way of working it out together, both of those tools are very good for doing that. Obviously, normally you would just like pop onto this whiteboard and just start markering, but since that isn't available right now, these are a couple of good substitutes. And I know a lot of people who I've been talking to, they're making comments about things where they'll say, look, we were in the midst of Q2 planning, we were in the midst of budgeting, and now, frankly, most companies are also rethinking all of that. You may have been in the midst of Q2 planning and budgeting, but if you were a travel site of some kind, you might need to rethink all of that. I mean, frankly, most companies and individuals are going to be doing some kind of rethink right now, regardless whether it's, oh my gosh, my industry just got substantially hit on the negative and we're like losing a lot of business, or on the other side, Zoom just became really popular. I heard, but have not gotten a chance to verify, that Zoom was like letting the free accounts go for longer than that 40 minutes as one of the many things to try to support here. My college like wrote to us and said they were offering all the alumni free pro Zoom accounts, like to be able to connect during this time. So there's all kinds of shifts happening, and these are the tools that will help us connect both now and later. Then finally, hazard 3, lack of clarity, purpose, and focus. Focus is so critical right now. So again, it's very easy to get distracted. It could just be clutter, like these piles of papers that you have all around. Kids, spouse, roommates, pets, Netflix, any and all of the above. Working from home, even before, required a fair amount of discipline and focus. I remember talking to folks when I was running the product team at Zazzle and I was establishing and running it remotely. And some folks would make comments saying, oh gosh, I don't know how you do it. I couldn't possibly work from home. And I used to joke back to them. I would say, then you shouldn't try. You shouldn't make that your primary thing if you already going in don't think you can. Now, look, we are all getting pushed here to really up our games and really explore being able to work from home, work remotely, have a physical distancing from folks and still feel connected and productive. But again, we're going to need to work through how do we get there. There's a lot of difficulty often with knowing what to do next. What is that next action I can take? Or even when you wake up in the morning, what should I be focused on? And I will say anything that was unclear before, back to that Q2 plan, those goals, maybe your individual top priorities or the team or group's top priorities, if they were not clear before, they are especially not clear now. So we want to figure out, how do we get back there? One, set up your daily to-do list. You can either do it first thing in the morning, or I would strongly recommend doing it last thing before you end your day, because that really sets the stage. It gives you this opportunity to really reflect on, what did I do today? What is really up next? And even sleeping, you might even sleep a little easier to have made that list, and then if you can put it aside, right? Say, okay, cool. I know what I have to do. I will wake up and I will just pull off the top. I've prioritized it. I'll just pull off the top. As you can see, this quote here from Franklin, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. That is so often true truth. Now, again, that doesn't mean a 5-year plan. That doesn't mean an 80-year plan. That doesn't mean, everything to every detail. But at the very least, what am I doing this next hour, this next day? Really getting clarity and focus there. I super recommend over communicating with your teams right now. Clarify both what you're doing and what others are doing. So if you're supposed to, say, write some code for someone, and then someone else is supposed to QA it, or you're managing these people, you're helping manage the dev and the engineering teams and the QA or testing teams, you can make sure, okay, well, wait, do you want this submitted before you start? Are you blocked? Who's blocked? Who needs what? Over communicate on who's doing what and on what timeline or expectation. For some of you too, going back to like with the children as well, set and share those working hours. For example, a lot of you are spread across time zones. Or childcare. Childcare is a huge issue that hits especially when everyone is quarantined at home. So for some of you, it might be that you split with your spouse and say, okay, you take the morning, I take the afternoon, and then when the kids are down, like we might be doing extra, I might just be sleeping and thankful that we survived the day. Or for some of you, if you have really young kids, you might be saying, look, I'm going to be intermittently available during nap time and then maybe a bit after bedtime. Or, again, whatever it is, whatever you need to do to communicate what is to be expected. And for some of you too, it might be either you're talking with your employees if you're managing people, or your manager. It might be, hey, look, I probably only have like 4 to 5 hours in me given the whole situation, or whatever the case is, and just kind of work through the situation together. Another recommendation for keeping focus: one device at a time. So right now, I am with you on my laptop, and I'm like with you fully engaged in this, as opposed to, let me also look at my phone. Oh, let me have every notification coming up. Let me just check it. Oh, a bing, let me check the bings, right? No, you want to, as much as possible, do a focus session on one device, or it could be the phone, right? It could be, I am focused on my phone because I'm primarily taking a call, but just watch out for that crossing, because obviously I think we all know by this point, if I just glance at this thing, if I just glance at the phone when I'm primarily focused somewhere else, it's like, oh, LinkedIn, oh, something, oh, okay, someone's messaging me, oh, like, let me look at that. Very easy to lose context by letting those notifications creep in. And then finally, for this focus notion, we want to form our clarity until synchronized. We really want to go through this in lockstep and synchronization with our teams as much as possible. The amount that we're going to get done, and also just feel that camaraderie, really feel that sense of accomplishment. There are so many people who are working to help right now, whether it's, people on the front lines medically, whether it's teams helping, maybe tech companies helping connect people with tests, whether it's supporting these video conferencing platforms. and everything in between, everything from full-on tech to, in person and so on. With all of that, we want to really understand with where our team is now, with where we are individually, what is that clear focus? What is that thing that we're going to do where, the fact that we've got 5, 10, 50, 100 of us really unified and a unified front, that's going to help push that goal further, faster. So again, always opting for that clarity. Some toolkit ideas for focus, right? Your focus toolkit. Evernote, Keep, or OneNote, right? Google Keep or Microsoft OneNote. These are 3 great systems for recording your own personal to-do list. They have a great little checkbox, interface where you can see it get struck out and you're like, yes, I got it done. Obviously, you can do pen and paper as well if you want to use that, but this is a great way to have it digitally available. For me, I feel like it's much harder to lose like the digital version of this than the paper one, but you're all at home right now, so do whatever works best for you. Getting things done is more of a framework on productivity. So there's a book that was written by David Allen in about 2001 where he lays out a methodology for getting things done. And the idea, to synopsize very briefly, is one thing is if you have a 2-minute task, just do it. Just get it done immediately, because the cost of context switching between, this and another, if they're just these short, quick tasks, is larger. So if it's just 2 minutes, get it done. And then one of the other big ideas out of getting things done is to write out everything, get it out of your head, and then from there, look at it, prioritize it, schedule it. Now, the reason for that is because, and I'm sure all of you have had this experience at some point in your life, possibly even more so right now, those 3 a.m. moments, right, where you might be disturbed out of your sleep and you think, did I write that email? Oh, I didn't send that thing. Oh, I didn't post this thing, whatever it is, oh, I didn't submit this thing, whatever. They introduce a lot of stress on our minds and our bodies. So getting things done, this notion of writing everything out that you need to do, is a way to make sure that it's captured somewhere. And then you can, since it's out and in front of you, you can look at it and manage it and evaluate and see, what do you want to do first? What do you want to do second? Again, going back to how to get focused. As far as communicating and really synchronizing with your team, we can look at different tools. And again, this is just a sample. Asana, Basecamp, Jira, Trello, any of these tools. There are many others. Some of them you may have already been using. Some of them you might be exploring using because you really weren't set up for this yet. And probably the majority of you, I would expect, and I would love to hear and any clarifying questions or comments, the majority of folks who I talk to who use these types of tools, the issue that they face is not whether or not they're using the tool, it's how well am I using the tool. So you will notice more so now than ever if the way you're writing up your user stories has been perhaps unclear at best, or you generally don't write test cases for things, or whatever it is, whatever is missing in your system, it is likely to be more clunky and irritating now than it ever was before, because you likely filled in the gaps in person conversations, and now it's more electronic. So again, look for opportunities. How can we better be utilizing these tools? And then finally, that question that we talked about earlier on, where I said it might feel a little soon to ask it, but it's very important to ask it. How can you make the most of this? Because the world just got sent to its room. It's a crazy time. It's very uncertain. There's a huge amount of time that you're going to have to reflect now and really see what is it that you care about? What is it that you most miss right now being in your place, self-quarantined? Understand also, what is it that you value? Things are going to come up while you're home, and they're going to be more exaggerated. Things you love, again, will be like seem even bigger, so even more amazing, even more exaggerated. Things that you hate will also become clear. I mean, I'm working with clients who are in the midst of job transitions, and for some of them, they feel like, great, now at least I don't have to go to that workplace right now. I was already kind of irritated. They enjoy the working from home. They've even gotten to a point where their workplace is less agitating and irritating from us just starting working together. But it doesn't mean they are happy now to stay. It means that they still want to go, and they're more eager to make that transition than ever. The same is happening on a lot of company sides. There, maybe some divisions are going down, but their needs are expanding and increasing. And I was talking to someone about, at Google, for example, where I worked for a number of years, and this is public as well, in '08, with that downturn, there was a lot of regret on Google's side. They did a hiring freeze. They really slowed to zeroed out hiring. And there's a lot of regret seen in management for having done that because it took so long to ramp up. So there are going to be these opportunities right now and in this upcoming future where there will be high growth coming out of this uncertain time. And so the question is, winter is here. We're in this, place where everything stopped, where it all got cold and, got frozen in place, frozen in time. And now is the time to plant seeds. Where is it that you want to go? There's the old quote of, when is the best time to plant a tree? And the response being 20 years ago. And then the idea is, well, the next best time is now. So we've got to deal with now. Now is our best option. So what are the seeds that you want to be planting now? And it doesn't have to be job change. I mean, it could be anything. It could be, I really want to have a family. I really, this marriage isn't working. This job isn't working. I want to start a side hustle because I want to have more security going forward. And I feel like just having one full-time job is not as secure as I thought. I want to shift the product that I'm working on because it's more, it's less, revenue focused and revenue generating, and it's more exploratory. And I want a little more security than that. Or I want to go for the big bets. I want to go for the big, find the latest, greatest thing in bio understanding so that we can avoid these situations going forward, and I can contribute to that. Whatever it is for you, winter is here. What are the seeds you want to plant so that in 20 years, you can look back and say, amidst all this panic that people were in, everything was so uncertain, but luckily I kept my cool, I kept my head, and I planted these seeds to set up this future that I now live in and enjoy so much. So again, let's recap because we covered a lot. What we covered, how to best manage ourselves and our environment during this time of uncertainty. We want to also understand best and how to approach and connecting and collaborating with your teams to keep moving forward. And how to act as a leader for you and your team and your family so that you can use all of this that you've learned to self-manage and then model that to others. You can show that you say, hey, look, I get it. You're freaked out. I get it. Let's sit down. Let's make that list. Let's understand what are the things we want to prioritize. How do we want to change those priorities based on the information that we have now? Now, what you're going to need right now, you're going to need to manage you. That is first and foremost. Your family, your space, your mind, your body, right? All of this, you're going to have to manage. You're going to have to make sure that you're doing that routine that's really going to work for you. And look, if you have moments of panic, freak out, binge eating, whatever, maybe some people had some sour cream and onion chips. Yes. You might have those moments, But you don't want that to be the routine. You want to get out of that state and get into that more positive, forward-looking state. You want to establish and maintain that connection. You want to get that focus where you form our clarity until synchronized. You're looking to your teams, your family, your whole situation, and getting clear on where is it that we're going? What is it that we're aiming to accomplish? Am I doing what's needed along that path? And then finally, reflect and plant whatever seeds make sense for you so that in 20 years, you get to look back and say, thank goodness I took this opportunity. I took this breath that we all took and I made use of it. I focused my energy, my thought, my time, all of my effort into something that was built into that life that I wanted or the product that we needed as a company, taking whatever skills and interest and insight that you have and applying it. It could be where you are, it could be somewhere new, whatever it is. And if you take these steps, we will totally get through this situation and you will set yourself up for better balance and ongoing success wherever that goes. Now, I hope that you just take all of these tips and implement them as soon as possible, right? Start using all of these tools to manage yourself, to manage your teams, to lead, to, shift your product as needed, all of this. But then for some of you, you might want more. You might want to get more individual help, really work through your own situation or your team situation. And if you're in that place, you can absolutely take me up on a free session where we go through and break through and get to clarity on where you are, what you need, understand the strategic approach that you're going to need to take for you to get to that 20 years. I'm so glad I planted these seeds. I got through what I needed to do right now. So if that is what you'd like for more support, please feel free to go to this link, apply.jocelynmariemiller.com, to grab a slot, get a time. If you need it, great. If you don't, fine. Go take these tips, run with them, and really, amidst all of this, I wish you all the best, staying happy, healthy, safe, and ultimately, it's funny because so much of the verbiage right now is focused more on surviving. And I would love to challenge and push you more towards, what if I didn't think about it only as survival? What if I thought about where we're going as thriving? And frankly, both are, of great interest, right? Making sure that we can survive and thrive. That's where we ultimately want to go, and we want to go there together. So with all of that, I would love to field any questions. I know that Xavier might have collected some questions from you all, and so I just want to check in and make sure we're getting you all what you need to support you going forward.
All right, give me one moment as I pull them up.
Sure.
And first of all, Jocelyn, I want to say this was amazing. Really presented a wonderful presentation, and I think a lot of the people that are watching online has definitely gotten a lot out of it.
Awesome.
I think at the moment, I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm going to give it another 2 minutes to give people the opportunity to not only take down Jocelyn's information, but just in case anyone wants to write a question.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess one question I can ask for the group, I guess you can say, as we kind of think of like this adjustment and how we discipline ourselves, I guess one question, oh wait, actually I'm going to let someone else
Sure, no worries.
ask this one. So apologies, the person, I thought somebody was writing in, but I guess one of the biggest things we could take out of it is just obviously to discipline ourselves in order to kind of like reinforce working from home. I thought the journaling aspect was amazing, trying to give yourself that positive feedback. I personally can say I'm kind of going nuts in my own space. So giving that feedback has been incredible. I know for me, I'm typically used to home being sanctuary and not necessarily making that the workspace. So I do think these opportunities will be really great. And some of these tips definitely take with me.
Well, and actually, one thing that I want to bring up that I was fielding questions on earlier today with product in specific. So one of the things that I want to make clear is that we are in the midst of a huge, not only uncertain time, but a time of huge shift. People, just by virtue of this having happened, people are experiencing the world differently. They're focused differently. For every business, and I want to say this very clearly, for every business and every individual, there is a question to be fielded of, what does COVID-19 mean for me? What does COVID-19 mean for my business? These are two extremely important questions to ask, because every single product has had its set of assumptions changed from under them. I have done talks here before where we talk about things like product market fit. And for those of you who aren't familiar, you can look through and understand, but the most fundamental level is there's a market of customers, there's a product that I'm trying to build. Where is the overlap? Is there an overlap? Am I building a product that nobody wants? Do people want a bunch of things that I'm not building? So finding where product market fit sits is extremely important. And when you're doing product market fit testing, you want to look at what are the set of assumptions that need to be true. I often use an example of Zappos. So when Zappos was created, no one was buying shoes online. And frankly, people weren't buying much online at that point as compared to today. So there was this set of assumptions, like people will buy shoes online, people will give their credit card information online, people will be online. All of these things were assumptions that were being made. Now, we look at it and we say, well, of course, like we see all of this information. I mean, there was all these issues about, oh, well, it's something that you have to fit, you have to feel. Like there was a lot of question around, was that even going to work? And frankly, at one point, it almost didn't work because of the shipping, the back and forth shipping. When they changed that approach, which was actually when Tony Hsieh came up with the idea of free shipping both ways, it was because the business was about to go under. And when he said, well, why don't we just make it free shipping both ways? The investors and advisors were saying, well, but that's going to make us bankrupt. And his response was, well, we're already going bankrupt. So who cares? This is a shot to figure out, is this a way to get my business to be viable? And it ended up working extremely well. These same questions are going to exist right now. There will be businesses that are on the verge of bankruptcy. There will be businesses that go through bankruptcy. There will be businesses that beyond growth time happens as a result of what we have now gone through. It's going to be different across different individual businesses, different industries, and your role within that is going to have a different, that's its own question. Am I working on the revenue making side of the business? Am I working on the growth side of the business? Am I working on, a more speculative side of the business? So this is why every single individual in business is going to have to ask this question: what does COVID-19 mean for my business or my product? What does COVID-19 mean for me? So I want to put that out to you as something to consider as you evaluate where you are and what is next. Again, both in your current professional state or your future professional, personal, all of that. It's a very important question to be asked and answered for each and every one of you.